Welcome everyone to Easy Landlord Forums monthly webinar. We will be getting shortly. As we wait for people to arrive, feel free to check out the website. You will see we have some new user-friendly pages that work great on your mobile device. In the upcoming months, you will see that we're going to be updating the website to be more user-friendly as well as mobile-friendly. Today, we will be talking about how to get out of debt with short-term rentals. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end during our Q&A session. Join us June 19th at 1 p.m. for our webinar on the devil behind rental renovations. After the webinar, feel free to use our promo code webinar1819 to get 20% off a pro account. This account will give you access to create, edit, email, print, and e-sign as many forms as you would like for however many units you sign up with. We will be getting started in about 30 seconds. Welcome everyone to Easy Landlord Forums monthly webinar. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know your name and where you're coming from. And feel free to even let us know how you heard about us. We will be getting started very shortly. In the meantime, feel free to check out the website and all the new user-friendly pages we just added. Today, we are going to be talking about how to get out of debt with short-term rentals. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box over the right side of the page, and we will get to them at the end of the webinar during our Q&A session. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, we'll note them, and then we'll get to them at the end. And then join us June 19th, add it to your calendars, at 1 p.m. for our webinar on the devil behind rental renovations. This is a really great webinar because everybody that I know that's landlords are always a little unsure of how much to upgrade your rental to make sure that you're still making money and to make sure that your tenants don't destroy it. So join us June 19th at 1 p.m. for that webinar. And without further ado, here is Elizabeth Colgrove to start the webinar.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk this month about getting out of debt with the short-term rentals. So one of the ways that we've really quadrupled our income is by getting into Airbnb, VRBO, and short-term rentals, renting out furnished houses to people coming into town for a small amount of time. So let's get started. So many people who've been talking, it's like this new thing, right? Rent out your house short term, make a lot of money. Well, that's always like the simplified version. So let's talk about the 3 things you need to think about when you're trying to decide if this is a good fit for you and your business model. 1, what part of my house should we rent out? 2, what do I need to think about when deciding if it's a good fit? Because like everything, it's not always a good fit because it really depends on what works best for you and your needs. And 3, how do I determine my price? Like everything, it depends on the market, but market in short-term rentals is a huge swing. So how do you figure out what the price is and if it's worth it? So let's get started. And as always, if you have any questions, please put it in the comment box and then we'll talk about it at the end. So what part of my house should I rent out? The first thing is, what physical part? So should you rent out your whole house? Should you rent out just a room? What about an in-law suite? So there's lots of parts to your house. So if you're just getting started and you want to do the roommate situation, a lot of people love renting out a room in their house. And the reason they do it is because if you don't like someone, it's only short time, a couple of days. And it also, though, keeps it in your house longer. Next, let's talk about the length of time. You can do it forever, just for a couple of days, just for major holidays. And when you're thinking about like the length of time, you also want to think about how long they'll be in your space. So, like, do you want to have your space permanently occupied, or do you only want it some of the time? Next, you want to talk about the speed that you're looking at, right? So, like, if you're looking to rent out your house for instant money, you know, a room next day is perfect. If you're looking for like long term, higher income, maybe turning a whole vacation rental. And lastly, how quick to receive the money. Airbnb is pretty good about paying the next day. So that's also something to think about after your booking. So let's talk about those more in depth. So the physical part of your house, are you renting out your room? So like we said, having a roommate. Are you renting out your entire house? So what we do, we turn our entire normal vacation or rental into a vacation rental. Are you renting out the only thing for only like special events, business trips, holidays? So like when we were overseas, my daughter and I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Helsinki. And it's very popular over there whenever they go on vacation that they rent their house out. Someone else pays for it, and then they get the income. So there's lots of different options. It's all about what you're comfortable with. Next, let's talk about the length of time. Um, are you looking for transient, frequent flyers, or long term guests? So, like a one long term roommate would be like a good example. So, if you rented your house out to, like, you had a room and you rented it out to a nurse, you'd get like a 13-week or longer length of time. If you did multiple short term guests, then that would be like a day or 2 days. So, the thing about that is usually one pays more than the other, plus they're in your space. So are you looking for like more short-term income paid at a higher amount per time, or do you want the guaranteed longer amount? Slash, do you want your space always in use, or do you want to have it only in use some of the time so that you can personally use it other times? Next, let's talk about speed of earning. How
Hey,
quickly?
Elizabeth. Sorry for interrupting. Is there any way you can speak a little closer to the mic where our guests are having a little bit of trouble hearing you?
Oh, I'm sorry. How's this? Is this better?
Um, a little closer. Sorry about that.
Sorry, everybody.
Oh, that's good.
Sorry. So the next thing is, how quickly are you looking to earn the money? Long-term guests are less work, but they pay less. So for example, we have a studio that's rented out longer term, we had a nurse, and then now we have like a business people. So they pay about one half to about two-thirds of what someone would pay if they're longer term. Um, So how do I know if renting my house as a rental is a good fit? So the thing to keep in mind in your house is that if someone is in here, they are using it. Is anything irreplaceable or devastating? So we like temporarily thought about turning our personal house into a vacation rental, just for the holidays, because out here there's a couple of big events and it'd be a great way to pay the mortgage. So when my husband and I were talking about it, we were like, okay, we have to put this up and this up. But the thing is, you have to be really careful. So like my husband is in the military and has a few like really special, irreplaceable like items that have been given to him over the years. And if those didn't make it into a locked closet, we would be absolutely devastated because they're not replaceable. Same thing with any furniture or anything else. So it's really important to make sure that you know what's in your house and can go from there. Homeowners insurance. Um, does your home cover it? How can you go from there? Most Airbnbs um, don't cut, like, there is the $1 million guarantee, but you also can get extra insurance. For example, on all of ours, we have extra insurance that covers us specifically for all of our houses, because it's not covered in your regular insurance. High liability items. So the thing you want to think about in your house is guns, weapons, animals, or other items. You want your house as bland as possible so there's no extra liability, especially when you're talking about homeowners insurance, because you're going to be paying more for that short-term protection. Now you need to think about like local regulations. Does your HOA or other city regulations allow you to rent out your house short term? Even in these more specific areas, you can um, even in these more specific areas, a lot of them will let you rent them out um, for a short period of time. The thing that was you need to know, because that might not work for renting out your whole house, but might work for renting out a room. For example, Coronado, California only allows you to do 30 plus days, no matter if it's your personal residence or if it's as a pure long short term rental. Murphy, that being said, tenants are on vacation. Are you ready for all of the comments, the trash? I mean, we've taken whole loads to the dump. And everything else. So even this past week, I posted on Reluctant Landlord how we had the tenant from Funness, and nothing made them happy. At 10 o'clock at night, they told us that the entire living room was trashed. There was 5 chips crumbs in a cup holder that was forgotten. And I know because I cleaned the whole house with my cleaning crew because they were such special people at our other house. So my point is, you got to understand the situation and you have to understand what customer service really means. Determine price. So first you need to evaluate the market value. Second, you need to look at the actual cost, and then you need to determine what it's worth. So, if a house is only renting for $100, it's not necessarily saying that you can get 1,000, but you need to figure out what the market value, because typically in this world, market value is a lot different of a number. So like in the regular world, it's between like 12 to 1,300. Well, here it's usually between like, let's say like $100 and like $400, depending on if it's like Memorial Day weekend or off season. So look at the market values of the whole year and figure out what they are. Now look at your cost. How much is the extra insurance? How much is turning your house? How much? And then go from there. And finally, decide what it's worth for you. What is your number to make this worth it? And then that is the number that you should put up. And then once you know that number, when you reach that number in that booking, then you can leave. If you're not getting that number, now you can stay. But this way you have lots of different options. So what is the market value? So when you're looking at other houses on Airbnb, VRBO, you need to compare like one for one. If a house with a pool, you need to compare a house with a pool. If it's beachfront versus like a view, they aren't comparable. So you need to look at one for one what it is, and keep in mind that small differentiations can make huge differences. So like a pool in a long-term rental only adds an extra $100. In a short-term rental, a pool could add like 50% more per day. So you really want to look at one for one location, how far you're away. Like, are you literally walking distance downtown with parking versus no parking, but walking distance? Stuff like that makes a big difference. So look through your listings and figure out the actual number. Actual cost: utilities, cost to evacuate the premise, pet sitting, additional wear and tear, structure. These are actual costs to leave. You want to make sure that you know all of your stuff so that you know the actual cost. For example, our utilities have gone from, 350 in the summertime for just a regular on our electric side to like a couple summers, 2 summers ago in our September June, July, and August, we paid $850 per month, so almost 3 times the bill. 2.75 was how much more our electricity costs. If you're gonna leave the premise and rent it out during a big air show or a big event, how much is it gonna cost you to get a hotel? Remember, you can't leave your pets, so how much is a pet sitting? And they do ruin stuff. So how much if they ruin your couch? Do you have a $400 couch or do you have a $3,000 couch? And then wear and tear. So at the end of the day, what is the value worth it? If you're doing this for cash, everything is bonus money. So make sure that your time and effort is worth it. If you're only making an extra $10 per day after all of your costs, is it worth it? Or is it worth it because it's paying for your vacation and you're getting an extra $10 a day? Um, for example, like I know when we've looked in San Diego and other areas, people when they've gone on their 3 week vacation will rent their house out, or when Comic Con comes in, they'll rent it out at like 10 times. So, for 20 days a year, they'll rent their house out at $1,000 a day, and that is worth their time. Now, normally that house would be worth like $200 a day. So they're not doing it all the time, but those few days pays their mortgage. So you definitely want to watch what it is worth to you and what the numbers really are. Because remember, the peak days are super, super peak, but the rest of the time is not necessarily. So you want to know what you're going after and what you want to do. Questions. This is your time to ask away.
All right. First, thank you, Elizabeth, so much for giving us all of that information. As she said, we are opening up for questions, and we'll keep this open for about a minute. So feel free to type your questions in the chat box and we will get to them. So in the meantime, the first question we have is, I have a property in an area that really doesn't have any interesting attractions by it. Can I still do a short-term rental? What would you recommend?
So we actually have made an entire business out of not being near any attractions. So the thing is, just because there isn't any attraction doesn't mean there isn't any attraction. So like we're an hour and a half away from the national parks, about an hour away from the visitor center, an hour and a half from the visitor center in. So we're almost 2.5 hours away, and we get overflow on the weekends from that area. We also get weddings. Like, I mean, I'm sure where you live, people live, right? So like people come into town for weddings and funerals and vacations to see their family. We get all that. And then we got a lot of business groups. So in our market, it's about the beds. So we've put a lot of beds in our houses and we can accommodate large groups that come in to like build a Starbucks, or they come in to work on the Costco, or they come in to work on one of the projects for the road works, the city projects. So we get a lot of those too. We have a little bit of everything in our area. Basically, if there is a hotel, or even if there should be a hotel and it's not quite there, there's a good chance that you could do well in that. Again, though, every single market is different. I can tell you how to succeed in my market, and then I can look at someone with a vacation rental on the beach. And we have very different markets. Like they do a Saturday to Saturday. They don't provide the linens. They have a very sand oriented house. And I, on the other hand, have tons of beds. We accept any bookings pretty much any day, except some holiday weekends. We have minimums. We provide really nice cable. We provide all linens and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you really have to know your market and you have to customize it for your market.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Our next question is, how do you determine if you will make more money as a long-term rental versus a short-term?
Honestly, it's trial and error, right? So we gave ourselves 15 months to give it a try with our first one, and it took 13 and a half months to find the strategy that worked. So that being said, we just did it. We've not bought a pure vacation rental. We've simply bought our traditional rentals and turned them into vacation rentals. And then when it stops working, we will turn them right back. For us, our goal is to make 4 times what our net. So like in our traditional rentals, we make about $400 to $500. In our vacation rentals, we make about $2,000 a month. That's our goals. They're not huge spreads. Our gross, we make a lot more money gross, but they
Oh,
does.
I think we cut out a bit.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
So we make a lot more money gross in the vacation rentals, but our expenses are absolutely amazing too. Like I said, the high utilities, we pay a lot more insurance. We are constantly refreshing our house because people break things. Just on Saturday, our bed frame broke, and it's really hard to blame people because you have no idea if it was like completely weakened by the first guy and now it broke on this one. So you just have a lot more expenses, but as a whole, that's what we're looking for.
Awesome. Our next question is, where do you advertise for your short-term rentals?
Airbnb, VRBO, and then those are our main ones.
Okay. All right. We have one more question and then we'll close out. Do you think short-term rentals can work out of state?
It really, yes. We actually got started on short-term rentals the day we moved 1,000 miles away. So my husband, the way we got started on this is my husband wanted to live on a boat. We moved to an area where I didn't think made sense buying, and I didn't want to rent. This had been my husband's dream, and so we said, sure. I didn't want to pay $600 to $900 a month for storage, and so we're like, well, we'll give this a shot. So we got started. It had so many moments over the 2 years, and what we ended up working out is it's 100% doable, but you gotta have the right expectations. So we made about 20 to 30% less of our potential because we were out of state. Things got missed. We had to throw money at the problems. You have to trust your team. We went through 4 cleaning crew before we ultimately found the ones that worked with us for about 18 months before we had to switch again when we came back. There was a couple of times I had to fly into the area to deal with issues. So it's doable, but it's a lot more stressful, and you have to be ready to come into town if needed.
Awesome. And we're actually going to take one more. This is our last one. How would you handle a big property with limited parking?
So the question is, how limited parking? Is there no parking around the house? Do you just only have 2 guaranteed spots? What kind of area are you looking at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So for example, we have a house that sleeps 16, but to be favorable for the neighbors, we have a very strict rule of 5 parking spots, 3 in the driveway and then 2 in front. They're not allowed to park in the neighborhood. We make that very clear, and that's how we go for it. Other areas, it's like the 2. So you see the 2-car garage. It's the 2. It's the 2 in the driveway. And then the question is, can they park other ways? How big of a house? Are you saying like you're appealing to 16, which means you're like 8 per car? Or are you just saying that you have 7 people? So the question is, if it's a big house, maybe you just want to do like 1 queen per bedroom. So that's 4 beds. So yes, you can sleep 8 people, but you really could sleep like 2 families, etc. So the question is, it's not, Arlene, it's not that it's impossible to do a big property. You would just want to really work on like looking at your area and seeing how you can maneuver it around. So if I had very limited parking, I probably would make the house more comfortable with less beds per se, because I can't accommodate that many people. Or if there's space that they can, you have to tell them where to park and make it very strict. I hope that makes sense. And if I can answer any more questions, just let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us by our chat box at the top right of the Ezlandlord Forums website. You can also contact us by email at support@ezlandlordforums.com. And you can call us at 877-367-6771. We thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, we will have another webinar on June 19th at 1 p.m. And we hope to see you guys then. Thanks again.